On today's episode, we'll discuss growing up a million miles away from Hollywood, getting out of your own head, My Cousin Vinnie, Elvis's grave, In the Heat of the Night, and of course, getting your picture taken with Joe Pesci's Oscar. Just a little bit of business before we start. There may be a curse word here or there in this episode, so please listen responsibly. As always, our website, theop.io, is up and chock full of tips, tricks, and gooey operator goodness. Make sure to check out The Breakdown, where the best operators in the biz explain shots they have done, The Musings, where we discuss everything from quick tips to larger concepts of storytelling, the answers, the images, and so much more. I may or I may not take a break or two during this episode, but I promise that none of them will be longer than 22 seconds.
Hey everybody, Danny Brown here, creator of the Knuckle Puck, and we at Knuckle Puck Camera are proud supporters of this episode of The Op. The Knuckle Puck is a camera accessory loved by operators and camera assistants alike that allows the operator to pan and tilt with precision and ease. Check it out at knucklepuckcamera.com and make sure to follow us on Instagram at knucklepuckcamera.
Finally, if you are enjoying the podcast, please follow us, write a review, share us with your parents, and talk us up around the water cooler with your friends. So grab a beverage, sit back, and enjoy The Op. Thanks for listening.
Lock it up, nice and quiet, and let's roll.
Rolling. Victor 30 Echo, take 2.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Mark.
And camera set. And action.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Op, the podcast where we talk with operators and everybody else in the business about operating and the art of visual storytelling. My name is Dave Kamaides. I'm your host, and thank you for being here. Today, we are coming to you from the interwebs and actually doing an interview over the web. So this will be interesting. It's one of the first ones I've done this way because the gentleman I'm going to be talking to, Darryl Humber, who is one of the best dolly grips in the business, so they'll probably fight me on that, is in Atlanta. And I thought, you know what? It's more important to talk to him than not. So here we go. Darryl has been in the business, I think I can honestly say forever, and by looking at your IMDb, and some of his credits, but not all of them by any means, include the, at some point, upcoming Bad Boys 4, Black Panther, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Prisoners, Furious 7, Big Fish, Old School, American Pie 2, and Miss Congeniality 2, because I like sequels, as you know. And a couple of years back, or actually last year, I guess, he was given the SOC Award for Mobile Camera Platform Operator Lifetime Achievement Award, which is a mouthful, but basically as one of the best in the business and a well-deserved award. Darryl, thank you very much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, and I absolutely will fight you on that.
I totally get it. Actually, I should say thank you for being there. You're not here,
yeah.
But thank you for being with us. So yeah, Darryl and I actually have never worked together, unfortunately, and I hope that changes. And we just met at the SOC Awards there, and you gave this amazing speech, and I was just like, oh my God, this guy's like the real deal. It was fantastic. So congratulations on that. Was that a cool thing to get?
It was completely unexpected. We all still think of ourselves as younger than we really are, I think.
Are we?
But it was an extremely cool night. I got to meet you. I got to meet several the late great Bill Myron, who I didn't know very long, but was so gracious and so polite. He actually emailed me out of the blue like a week before the awards and said, I just want you to know I'm so happy for you and it's wait to meet you, blah, blah. And I'd literally never spoken to Dale in my life. And
wow.
He was so wonderful. And it broke my heart. He passed soon after, but
yeah, for the people who know, Dale was, I actually didn't know him well either. I think we'd met once or twice in passing, but he was a force in this industry and a major talent who unfortunately passed away very suddenly, just recently. And it's a real loss to the entire community, but that speaks highly of him that he would reach out like that.
He
and
did.
That's surprising.
Yeah, but it was like I said, it was such a cool night. It was great to meet you finally. Of course, I've known your name forever, and it was a great to meet you and see. I saw it as an opportunity to see a lot of friends that I don't see very often, Jeff Haley and guys like this. I saw Scott Sakamoto again, who I hadn't seen in a couple years, 3 or 4 years.
And for the people who are listening, the SOC, who may not know, is the Society of Camera Operators. And I love the fact that they actually give these awards out. They give awards to camera operators, obviously. But I love the fact that they give these awards out to, folks who push dollies and cranes and whatever, because as far as I'm concerned, you guys are part of the camera team. There's no question about it, which clearly we're going to talk about.
Right.
But starting us out, can you tell us your story? Tell us how you got here.
Well, I grew up in a little town called Oak Grove, Alabama, which is basically 30 miles west of Birmingham and about 10 million miles from Hollywood. I remember growing up thinking, and I loved the movie. I love movies and always wanted to do something to get involved with them, starting at the age of probably 9 or 10, 9 or 10, 12. I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark. I remember that. And that really solidified it for me. But even earlier than that, I was fascinated strangely by camera movement. I didn't know how it was achieved. I didn't know who did it. I knew somebody did, and I almost brought this up at the SOC thing, but I didn't want to, it was too long and I didn't want to get into it. It was a little too weird. I remember a movie came out called Someone to Watch Over Me. I think it was directed by Ridley Scott. And I never saw the movie till I was in my 20s, and I don't remember much about it. But I remember in the trailer, there was a shot of the camera gliding over this black and white tiled floor. I still remember that shot, and I remember that shot has stuck with me for 30. I remember seeing it and thinking, wow, that is really cool, the way that it glides over that thing. How do they do that? Somebody does that. And I still remember that shot, almost 40 years later.
How old were you at this point?
I was probably 8. I don't remember exactly when it came out.
And just to set the table, and this is gonna probably put a lot of our listeners into abject fear. This was pre-internet, so there was no Google, so you couldn't look this up and figure out how they did it.
Way pre-internet, and I actually wasn't sure if it was a false memory. A year or two ago, I looked up the trailer, and there it was. It wasn't exactly how I remembered it, and it only lasts like 2 seconds.
So at the time, like you said, how did they do that? Did you, other than just, I think that's cool, did you have any information of what went into that?
I knew absolutely nothing. I didn't know anything about departments or department heads or how it was all organized. I didn't know who did what. I knew somebody did it. But, back then, I probably thought, most people think when you make a movie, the general public, I think, thinks when you make a movie, you get a camera and a couple of guys and you go out and shoot some actors. They don't realize there's 20 trucks and stuff like that, and tons of equipment if you want to do it, the way big studios do it. Anybody, a teacher I had said years when I was in college said, all you need to make a movie is camera and sunlight. And strangely, he also said something else. He said, if studios could figure out a way to get an image onto a piece of film without a camera and sunlight, they would do it.
Oh, that's painful, right?
I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that for 35 years, and it hit me like last year.
Yeah.
I went, oh my God, please don't let that be prescient.
I just read an article about Steven Spielberg. Remember Zorro the Gay Blade that Antonio Banderas was in, which is like what, 1980s, I think, or something like that.
Like that.
Apparently Steven Spielberg had maybe he was an executive producer on it or something. I don't know why he was there, but he had a discussion with Antonio Banderas about the fact that he said in the next 5 to 10 years, obviously it took a little longer, none of this town will need to be here and everything will be CGI and you'll just be standing on a stage in the middle of nothing. And it's just like, there were people who saw this coming the way it is, but we all still go on location. So at least there's that, but I interrupted you. So you saw all this and we're like, how do I do this? And
yeah. And it stuck with me. And I, of course, graduated high school. I remember going to my counselor in high school and saying, my guidance counselor, and saying, I want to be in the movie business. How do I do that? And she said, I have no idea.
Finish a pamphlet of becoming a veterinarian.
Yeah, one of the things too, I can get you into coal mines and shoe stores, and
Wow.
But
well, at least you asked, and at least they were honest.
Yeah, they were very honest, and she was a great lady. She is a great lady. But I went on to college. I was also always interested in radio. I used to make tapes of myself, doing radio shows, and I used to emulate the guys. We had a station in Birmingham called 95 Rock. So I'd start a record and go, all right, we're back. And this is, whatever. This is Metallica with blah, blah, blah. It was interesting. 95 Rock. Because I like the way they said it.
Please tell me you still have these tapes somewhere.
I have looked for them. I can't find them.
Oh, jeez. Okay. All right.
But I went on to college. Went on the radio track because that's really all I knew to do, and I was absolutely interested in it. One day I was walking across the quad. A young lady I was in class with, I can't remember her name, unfortunately, ran into her, and she said, "Hey, have you heard about this new class? It's an interim class taught on weekends for like 6 weeks. They bring a department head in they bring a different department head in from Atlanta every weekend. They teach a class, and at the end of you choose which department you want to be in. At the end of the 6 weeks, you make a little short film." Wow. I said, "No, I have not heard of this, but where do I sign?" She said, "Go to the, blah, blah." And I ran across the thing, and I think I was one of the last slots to sign up. Met the teacher. Guy name was Billy Field. There's my dog barking.
It's all good.
I think that's the mountain dog. Signed up, started the class taught by a guy named Billy Field, who was a writer in Hollywood. He'd written for Trapper John MD and stuff like Fame, the TV series, and he was from Alabama and was teaching the class. So they brought in a department head makeup artist, brought in Paul Verrier as an assistant cameraman, which he was at the time. He later became an operator I worked with for 20 years.
Yep.
Sound mixer, and so on, a key grip. Somehow I fell into the grip department. It just looked cool to me. Back, we didn't have a dolly. I think we had a camera and a tripod and seat, but I did C-stands and stuff like that. And at the end of the 6 weeks, I came early. I was the first one there and the last one to leave. I was so excited. I remember one of the key grip, one of the grip guys had a jacket from Friday the 13th, The New Blood. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world that I got to talk to this guy, and we'd all go out to dinner after class. After the class, they'd all go to dinner. I'd tag along, And
I remember when I first started, there was someone, I can't remember who it was, who wore a Mork and Mindy jacket.
Yeah.
And I literally remember talking to him and at some point brushing up next to it just so I could sort of touch it because it was just so cool.
It really was. So yeah, we the next summer, he took a shine to me, and then because he could see I really, really wanted it, I think. And the next summer coming up, he got me a job. There was a really low budget movie shooting in Mobile, Alabama called Soul Taker with Joe Estevez, who was Martin Sheen's brother. And several other, kind of actors who are in a lot of, lower budget movies. You would know their faces, that kind of thing. And worked my tail off. I ran everywhere, of course. Didn't know anything, so all I knew how to do was run.
What did you do on it? You were a PA? Or?
Grip on it. Yeah.
Okay. I
remember talking to the second AD and saying, because he called me and I said, "Well, what do I need to bring?" He said, "Oh, the normal grip tools, a crescent wrench and a knife." And I'm going to go, "All right." And so I went out to the hardware store, but went down. I think the budget was $100,000, which at the time today would probably be $1 million,
Yeah.
But this is like 1988. And I remember I got sent home one day because I'd worked myself to the point of exhaustion. And the key grip said, "Go to your room. I don't want to see you again the rest of the day." Of course, I went to my room, took a 3-hour nap, and came straight back and pissed him off, but I wouldn't leave. So yeah, it was, I learned a little bit, and to me, it was the best thing. I couldn't believe I was on an actual movie set, and it was I would watch the key grip was keying from behind the dolly, a guy named Mike Gulbin. And Fisher 10 square track, the old square track. And I would watch him, and he would teach me about feathering and stuff like that. And so it was really cool. And I got to see that was more just seeing the process and seeing how everything was run and that kind of thing. Came home to Birmingham. I think I had $1,500 in my pocket, and I think I was making. I think we worked 6-day weeks. I think I was making a $300 a week flat, and.
Which was like a crazy amount of money back then, right?
It was. I remember thinking I could actually make a living at this. What the? And I paid my own hotel. They expected me to pay my own hotel room.
Oh, wow.
But the thing is, at the end of the show, I think I had run my ass off so hard that they said, you know what, let's pay Darryl's hotel room. So I actually got to go home with that money. I didn't have to do that.
That's pretty cool. The first thing that I ever came out to Hollywood, I came out to Hollywood after my sophomore year in college just because I was bored, basically.
Yeah.
And I lucked onto the visual effects for Tremors movie.
Oh, yes.
Miniature effects, and I worked with them all summer, and I worked my butt off. And when it was time to go back to school, they didn't want me to go, and I was like, I got to go back to school. And they paid my I remember they paid my my plane ticket home, and as a thank you. And I was just like, that's unbelievable, because it was also like, a plane ticket or like a hotel room for that long was like, how do people afford that? That's a lot of money.
Exactly. Plus, in a way, I was from a little town in Alabama. We were vaguely suspicious of Hollywood people anyway.
As you should be. As you should be, no matter where you're from.
Still am. But I didn't really realize, and it showed me that there are good people. They're just like everybody else. They're nice, and they have families, and they, they love, that kind of thing. Because I never met anybody from Hollywood. So, but yeah, I came back and somehow fell into doing commercials and did another low budget movie called Elvis's Grave.
Ah, love it.
Yeah. About a serial killer Elvis impersonator. The key grip was Danny Pershing, who is one of the top Dolly grips in the world, and got to be friends with him, and of course met him again years later. But and just kind of moved from there. Moved to Atlanta in 1990. I got an interview on My Cousin Vinnie as a grip. Got the slot. They actually bumped me up to best boy for a week, and I shorted the entire crew like an hour of double time. That didn't go over well.
For anybody listening, the best boy is takes care of everything out of the truck and orders stuff, but also does all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that didn't make you very popular.
No, it did not. Clearly not. And that pretty much ended my best boy career.
Well, thank you for doing that, because you'd be on the truck and none of us would know you otherwise if you did well at that. So.
I wouldn't have lasted very long. So,
and just again, for people who are listening who may not know, when you say you were a grip, basically, what are you doing as a grip as opposed to a dolly grip?
A grip, in the American system, a grip deals with bounced light, diffused light, and shaping light. And also, which means we use flags, pieces of fabric, and use a stand called a C-stand, which takes years to learn how to operate efficiently. And you run something up, you basically run up a frame with fabric in it to take light off of something that the DP doesn't want light on, like a wall or something that's too hot. Or you put a piece of a diffusion in front of light to soften it, which is kind of the varying grades of opaqueness that I guess that's a word, that the light goes through and softens it up. Or you bounce light off of a white or a colored piece of material to give the light soften it, giving it a certain quality. And we also, you figure if they want a camera rigged in a certain place, the key grip and there's grips figure out how to put it there, straight off a bridge or off a tree or off a car mounts. That you learn all that stuff as a grip. And so basically that's the grip, and then the electricians set the lights and the grips make it right. That's the old saying.
So I was just throwing this out there for anybody who's listening who's not in the business, and I think you'll probably find this funny. The last show I did before the shutdown that we're in right now was Snowfall, and the key grip is a younger guy named Ryan Nelson, who is actually, he's one of the best key grips I've ever worked with. I don't know how he knows what he knows at the age he is, but he's just fantastic. But we're in a very small set, and I'm up against the wall and I'm sitting on the dolly to the point that I'm like leaning back against the wall, and they have to get a C-stand with a flag, on the other side of the dolly, right next to my legs, basically. And I'm thinking, how am I going to sit? And he goes, well, why don't you step out of there? And I was just like, why don't you send me the C-stand and I'll set the flag. Tell me how you want it. And so he kind of looks at me and he goes, hey, give me the C-stand. Come on. So I put it down. And as I'm struggling with it, and granted, in fairness, I didn't have a lot of room, so I'm just going to throw that out there. As I'm struggling with it and putting it down and trying to move things and try to get stuff and not move the set dressing, I slowly realized that every grip in the room is staring straight at me. And a couple of them were actually whispering to each other. And I'm like, oh, geez. So I start to, and I put it down and I finally get it down and I go, give me a couple sandbags. And he's like, why do you need a couple sandbags? I was like, because it's kind of fall over. And my dolly grip, Steve Hubble, goes, well, that's because you put the leg in the wrong place. And I said, look, who's setting the flag? I'm putting it this way.
Yeah.
It worked, but I did it completely wrong. They gave me a B minus for it. So it's not as easy as it sounds.
Yeah. That's awesome. I know Steve. He's awesome.
Steve's amazing.
Solid.
Yeah. So Elvis's grave. What was it called?
Elvis's grave.
Elvis's grave, which I'm sure everybody has seen, and if you shouldn't, you should go out and check it out for the gripping, if nothing else.
Yeah.
And so basically, that was your first gig in Atlanta.
That was my cousin Vinnie was my first gig in Atlanta. Elvis's grave was in Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So I was still living at my home with my parents and would go to work every day. We're shooting in an old abandoned grocery store. It was our sound stage.
And then so was My Cousin Vinnie the first sort of union show you did?
And My Cousin Vinnie was non-union.
It was non-union. Oh my gosh. It was a big movie though.
It was, yeah. At the time, it was my first, I think, studio picture. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Yeah. Cause I wasn't in the union yet, in 1990. It was my first movie with like movie stars, and Joe Pesci had just won for Goodfellas, I think, because he brought his Oscar in. And
that's great.
Somewhere there's a Polaroid of me with a mullet holding this.
Oh my gosh! If you find that, send me a copy. I'll put it on.
I got it somewhere. I'll go.
That's fantastic. That's great. I love it. And so he brought it into show. Did he win while he was shooting the movie?
I think he did.
Yeah,
I think we were shooting at like March, April, and May around Oscar season. I think he did because I think he left and then won and came back and then let everybody hold it and get their picture made with it. And it's heavy.
That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, that's great. That's good to hear. Cool. So you were just a grip or a hammer on that.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when did you get into dolly gripping?
Let me think. I, of course, was always interested. We finished My Cousin Vinnie, and a TV series called In the Heat of the Night was shooting.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was their 5th season. And somehow, I can't even remember how, it was so long ago. Somehow I got a slot on it. So one of the grips left. The B camera dolly grip left. And who's actually still a friend of mine, Chris Rollins. He left. And somehow I slid into the spot. Didn't really. I mean, I knew enough. I knew up and down, and that's about it. And back then, a B camera back then was more of a training position. I guess it still is in certain ways. But there are B camera guys who do B camera for me are usually better than I am. So I back then it was a lot of point and shoot. I mean, park and shoot. So basically back then I would park the dolly, make sure everything was good, and then go put 12 bys together.
Yeah.
It wasn't, you didn't specialize in B camera back then. You worked as a hammer and then move the dolly and then go back to carrying sandbags.
Yeah. It's not like today where the B camera shot is sometimes more complicated than the A camera shot.
Absolutely. It's longer lenses and it's you're hunting and pecking for stuff. So, did that. And I think the 2 seasons later, I did 2 seasons of that. And 2 seasons later, the A camera dolly grip, whose name I can't remember, is from LA. He left. And, I remember they all knew I wanted to do it. And, the DP and the key grip, Lionel Portugal, asked me if I wanted to do it. And I said, absolutely. And they told me, we went to Carol O'Connor and Carol said, give him a shot. And, Carol's a wonderful man. I called him Mr. Carol because I didn't want to call him Mr. O'Connor because that's too formal. I sure as hell wasn't going to call him Carol because I'm 24 years old.
That's so cool.
In the South, we formalize and informalize at the same time by calling Mr. Bill or Mr. Carroll, use your first name. Yep. I always called him Mr. Carroll. Everybody else called him Pops. But he was a wonderful, wonderful man and was always very nice to me. a young kid. And I did somehow stuck with it, made a lot of mistakes, but that's, by then we were all a family. We're in a little small town in Georgia, Covington, Georgia, shooting for 6 months at a time, 15, 16-hour days, 6 days a week back then. The seasons were 6 days. And, so we were basically a family. We went to each other's weddings and funerals and unfortunately, and stuff like that, parties. And I was allowed to make mistakes. They knew what they were getting, and I was allowed to learn. I was allowed to make mistakes. Nobody ever rolled their eyes and went, "Oh God, can we just get this? Can we get somebody to do this?" They never did that. And that was the best school I could have gone to. I'm learning as I'm an A-camera dolly grip on a network television series, making $15.33 an hour. And so I did 3 seasons of that, and just kind of from there I kind of had met some key grips in Atlanta. There were 2 or 3 key grips who did the bigger stuff that came through, and they started bringing me in as B camera and A camera when they TV movies. Back then we did a lot of Hallmark pictures, stuff like that, Hallmark Hall of Fame movies, which
movies of the week, basically.
Movies of the week. And so you didn't have to be, you weren't doing a lot of swooping around on a movie of the week, So again, it was a great learning experience on those, because it's not a $80 million, $200 million picture. You're allowed, nobody's expecting you to be a world beater. So
yeah.
So, and just later on, worked for some great key grips, Eddie Evans and Robert Kemp, who did Driving This Daisy, and there was a key grip in town named Alan Rollins who had his 80 card, worked in LA a lot also, and I had moved into the B camera slot for him, and did some I can't even remember the movies we did, but he was Philippe Rousselot's key grip. And,
oh wow, Philippe, amazing cinematographer. So
exactly, and he his dolly grip, Ashley Sudge, very well known dolly grip, decided to move to Los Angeles and wanted to do other things. He'd been with Alan a long time, and Alan called me and said, "Hey, I got a movie in LA," and I had my 80 card at that time. I had finally gotten it.
Your 80 card being you could work in LA in the local here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he said, I need a dolly grip. Do you want to do it? And I said, sign me up. Did my first job in LA, which was called Envy, with Jack Black and Ben Stiller and Rachel Weisz.
That's a cast. Wow.
Yeah. And I was his dolly grip for the next 25 years with he and Philippe, and we did Big Fish and Constantine and
wow,
Lions for Lambs and that kind of thing. So, and that was my path. He recently retired. Now I work with his son, Kerry, who's a wonderful key grip, just like his old man. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. So let me ask you a question. If you think you can answer this, what do you think it was that they saw in you that you ended up staying with them for 25 years? I mean, clearly you know how to move the dolly, and you're not booming up when you're booming down, when you should be booming down.
Which I have done.
There are times when I've said this before where I'll be on the wheels.
I know.
Just before something happens, I'll look down and go, I have no idea which way to go. And then I forget about it, and it goes the way it needs to.
I tell people this, if you think about it, you're screwed.
You're screwed.
You're screwed, because I've done it. This is the same thing. And I went, okay, I got to go which way's up. And as soon as it's time, I'll go I go, okay, I got to look at the little diagram.
Yeah. Well, you got a diagram on our wheels. We got no diagram. I should make one. Anyway, but just back to the question. So what do you think? What do you think it is that?
I think they saw that I really. Here's the thing. I took it extreme. I take my job. I try to have fun, but I took it extremely seriously. I take and maybe too seriously at times, to the detriment of other things like family and stuff. I mean, I really, really wanted it really bad. Wanted to do it and wanted to be good at it. Spent a lot of time. I'd be off to the side practicing stand-ups and sit-downs. I'd get somebody sit in a chair practice it, which is
moving up and down. Wow. Okay.
The hardest things for dolly grips to get.
And camera operators, yeah.
Or stand-ups and sit-downs and stuff like that. I was on time. I was on time, and I worked my ass off. I never left. You didn't have to look for me because I wanted to be there. I wanted to be by the camera. And I wanted to be a part of the process. And I think that kind of, I wasn't somebody who just showed up, put an apple box behind the dolly, and sat down, opened a magazine. I wanted to be the process. And I think that kind of, they saw that and saw that I was getting a little bit better every show, so.
Yeah.
Let
me ask you a question. Do you remember when the first time you did a serious crane move? I'm not just talking about like, just a boom up in the air, but like, a 5-point crane move. And how do you, I want to ask you some questions about cranes from an operator point of view, but as a dolly grip, you've probably seen it done a bunch of times, but the first time you do something like that, it must be frightening.
Yeah. Well, I think actually somehow I got back on somehow my Cousin Vinnie. I wasn't the only guy, but we were on I think we're on a shot maker, which is a self-contained crane back in the day,
It's a non-telescoping crane.
Exactly. There's a crane mounted on a truck just for that purpose,
Yep.
For those who don't know, because they're not really around anymore. I remember there was a shot driving down of Ralph Macchio and the other guy driving down in their red convertible. And somehow I got wrangled to be on the front of the arm and do this stuff,
So are you the shot maker is driving with them, you were saying?
Next to the car. I remember how starting over the hood and coming over and doing whatever.
So you're on the shot maker, the back of the shot maker, working the bucket, and you're driving next to this and moving the camera at the end of the arm all around this car.
I can't remember how I got into that position or why they trusted me to do it. And I think, of course, my memory's jumbled, but we didn't have remote heads back then. There were 2 guys on the front of the arm,
Oh, wow.
If I remember, I can't remember, but I remember being on that shop maker and thinking, I can't believe they're trusting me to do this.
That's not a good thing.
And I don't remember why. Billy Taylor was the dolly grip from New York, and he was a wonderful dolly grip. I think he left the business to become a writer. I don't remember where he was or why they put me on that. But I remember doing that shot. And look, from then on, it was they also gave me a Titan crane shot for some reason, which a Titan, of course, is, huge. And you tie a rope to the front and yank it and get it going and move it down.
Yeah. It's another static crane, but how big are those? How long are those?
I know the lens height's 27 feet at the top.
Okay. So that's a big, and that's a lot of mass to be moving around as well.
You don't do a lot of swooping with a Titan crane like you do today. So, with a Titan crane, of course, if you see the Player with Tim Robbins, that shot was with that huge opening shot with a Titan crane, And so that was a lot of this very calculated, very rehearsed move. So that's my first crane shot that I remember.
Yeah. Well, now since we're on, and I'm going to segue a little bit from an operator's point of view. So when you're setting when you're working with a telescoping crane shot, director comes in and says to the operator, "I want to start up way high." Guy walks underneath. I want to drop down and be behind him, follow him a little bit, and then as he comes over, I want to, come back to the right and then swoop up and come past this tree at the end, or something like that. Just making something up.
Yeah.
So for a newer operator who doesn't know what they're looking for, what are the things that you would be looking for to help the operator as to where? Because it's all about where you set the base, right? And how do you determine? How does an operator help you determine where best to do that?
Well, my thing with technicranes or telescoping cranes, you want to cut out variables, and that's true of every shot. Cut out any variable you don't need. So generally, if there's a straight move at any point in the shot, and you want to. And if it's possible, you line the crane up so that the pickle is the move forward is just pickle,
So it's just telescoping straight forward, and there's no panning or anything like that.
Possible. It's not always possible, and if you have a very good pickle operator or a a crane with the arc compensation, it doesn't really matter. You can have the base to the side, and if it works better for the shot, you drop down and you can swing, and he'll hold that straight line, and then you can come up and do the rest.
And for people who haven't heard before, the pickle is a guy who's on what would you call that? Is it a switch? It's not a switch. It's like I don't know what I don't know what the hell it is. A trigger or something like that. But that telescopes the crane in and out. And then arc compensation would be this new technology where basically the camera points at the exact same place unless the operator tells it to. So even if it's swinging around on an arc, it'll sort of maintain that position.
Exactly.
I always sort of look at it though, as I never like to count on that stuff, because the time that it'll be the worst place you put the crane is when it doesn't work. So basically you start off by going, is there a straight move that we can help with this? And then how bad will that make other parts of the shot?
First of all, I look, is it better? Can I still reach my end point if I use the pickle for the straight point? If I can't, if the crane's not long enough, if basically you can extend the length of your crane by putting the base to the side and using a swing instead of a pickle. A pickle, you got, on a 50-foot crane, you got, 30, 40 feet of movement. Because the short end of the crane is still like 10, 12 feet long. So if you need a longer crane, if you need I don't know how to extend the crane move pickle, you put the base to the side and use it as a swing. He uses the arc compensation, or he holds the line on the trigger, and then you still have swing left to get up and go where you need to go. That kind of thing. So and as far as where the base goes, I always consult. Of course, the operator and I will talk about it. I always consult my pickle operator, because he's or she is someone who does it every day. They know generally, and my pickle operator who I've used the most is a guy named Mike Howell, who works with Cine Moves, and we've done 20 movies together, and I trust him to he just if I'm wrong, I'll say, what do you think? And he'll say, well, if you put it here, this, that, or the other, whatever, and we reach an agreement, talk to the operator, he or she says that's great. Or if they think, well, that's going to give me a weird back pan or a weird something here, then we'll say, okay, well, what if we we'll figure it out that way. But we all consult each other. I'm not one of these guys that says, no, put the base here. I don't do that because, I think there are a lot of experienced people who, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody, I've been wrong more than once, and so has everybody else. So I consult everybody that's involved in the shot.
So when the director is sitting there explaining the shot to, the director of photography, myself as the camera operator, you, the camera assistant, anyone else who happens to be listening, are you in your mind already making up, this is how I think it should be done?
Absolutely. As soon as I'm standing there overhearing stuff. I always say, most of the stuff I find out about a shot is just by overhearing it. So I always stand close, kind of off to the side, because a lot of times a director and an operator are having a discussion, and I don't want to stick my face in there, unless I know them really well. If it's just a director and an operator that I've worked with for years, and that's fine. But if it's a new situation with new people I don't know, I'm not going to stick my face in there and say, well, I stand off to the side because I know the operator is going to come to me and say, okay, this is what we want to do. Or the DP is going to come and say, okay, this is what we want to do. So I'm already looking at angles, and once I see, I will start walking around, and I'll find the spot, and I'm kind of looking, at where I need to start and where I need to end, and kind of triangulate where the base should go for that. Take variables. Is there a straight push at some point? Is there, that kind of thing. So and generally I'll stand in a spot where I think it's going to happen, and I'll motion to the base, the pickle, the Technicrane tech. I'll motion to them, and I'll wave my hand and say, I think the post goes here, and people either, if they disagree, then we'll figure something out. Or if the operator thinks, well, I don't know if it's going to, I want to leave an extra 8 feet at the end in case he wants to do a little push in, and we'll adjust the base to that, so.
Yeah, it's funny because you said that, because that's a lot of what I end up doing is with crane shots is I set up for the shot that they've explained.
Yeah.
And then assuming we're into the show a little bit, I also try to sort of think, and at the last minute, I bet they're going to throw this. So let's make sure.
Yeah. Even as a dolly grip, the style. You always work with DPs or directors who always like a little push at the end. There are just some people who love pushes, and I love them too. And also, anytime I set a shot up with a piece of equipment, I always want to leave as many options available as I can. Does he want to do a little push? Does he want to do a little rise? Does he want to do does the bass have to be a certain way in case he wants to drop to the ground? Because in some places, in some bases, some Technocrane bases, you can't drop to the ground if it's in a certain orientation. The cockpit, the steering part's in the way, steering column, whatever.
Yep.
So I try to leave as many options open as I can, and also in case this doesn't work, what's plan B? Can I move it to here and still make it work? So I've always got a backup plan. I try to always have a backup plan in my head that I can implement quickly. And I'll even go to the Technocrane operator and say, look, if this doesn't work, let's not drop the anchors yet. Let's be ready to adjust it to this point. Because I know, if this doesn't work, this might, Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. So let me pivot and ask you a similar question, but a little different. A big part of this podcast is, and I may not have said this earlier. This is kind of, I wish that this existed when I started, and I didn't have to learn everything by screwing up,
right,
and hear from people. So I come in on a show. I've just moved up to A camera. I've been B camera forever. I'm a new A camera operator, and I'm working with Darryl Humber, who's been around forever. And someone comes up and says, "Here's this crazy Technocrane shot. How do I work with you? And how do I use what you have, but still maintain the fact that I am the operator and I have to drive the bus a little bit I could just come to you and go, Dale, I have no idea what I'm doing. Can you tell me what I'm doing? And you'd probably be fine, and that would be great. Just operate.
And here's the thing: I'll make it look like you know what you're doing.
I was going to say, but how do I? So as a new operator, I guess what I'm saying is I'll have my ideas, but I probably will not be certain whether those are right or not. So how do I work with Darryl Humber?
Well, here's the thing. You come up and you ask me, do you think this will work? That's the bottom line. Do you think this will work, or is this better? And I will, like I said, and we can get into this later. I always have two mindsets in my head, actually 3 mindsets when I start a show. And number one, my job is to make your job easier. That's the reason I'm there, is to make the operator look good and make his job easier. Once you accept that, everything tends to go smoother. So if you're a young, new beginning operator, don't throw your ego around. Don't, you know what I mean? 'Cause that, immediately puts me in a bad mind space. I'm like, look, I'm here to help. Just come up and ask, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And immediately, we're working together. And I will always, like I said, it's always my job to make you look good. So it's as simple as that. Come up and ask me, what do you think about this? And immediately I am more on your team. If you say that to a dolly grip, he or she is immediately on your side, because they know that you trust that you trust them. And that's the biggest thing with dolly grips. If you don't trust me, it immediately gets frustrating for me. I've worked with operators who are fantastic operators who've been around a long time, and they immediately are telling me everything to do. You know what I mean? Put the dolly here, put it this. I think you should do this. I think you should have the dolly this way. I think you should do this. And that makes me nuts. Just talk to me. I can help you if you'll let me.
So let me try to get to a specific thing for people, operators who are listening. So you're saying, instead of me going, it's better for me to go, I need the camera to start here at A, I need to go to B, I need to make sure that we got to get low enough here, because I think we're going to get low enough, but I don't want to lose the height here, as opposed to saying, hey, give me 4 pieces of track from here to here, put the dolly this way, put the low mode bracket on, put the drop down on and whatever. Assume that you'll fill in the gaps and make it the best way possible.
Well, that's another way to, absolutely. You can as an operator, absolutely do that. That's fine.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't work, it's on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, you're saying give you even less information than that, or what's the ideal?
It's the ideal. Look, I don't think there really is one. I think it depends on individual operators and Dolly. I think I have no problem, of course, with an operator who knows what they want, knows what they want to do, knows where they want to go, and saying, let's just put 4 pieces of track here, put the low mode on, and go from here to here. Absolutely. That's my job, is to make that. When you tell me that, that's my job, is to make that happen. I don't have to have an opinion. You know what I mean? In the other way, a lot of operators will come and say, I need to start here and end here, blah, blah, blah. What do you think is the best way to do this? Either way works for me. That's fine.
Yeah.
As long as you're not, I don't don't even know how to put this. I can sense when you don't trust me or when you don't think.
I was going to say it's a sense thing, and I totally get it. I mean, one of the things, and let me ask you another question. You're working with someone you've never worked with before. Mm-hmm. You're starting a movie, let's say, so you'd be with them for 2 months. You never worked with them before. Right. Am I correct in assuming that you're probably doing the same thing I would be doing, which is IMDbing that person and seeing what they've done?
One of the first things I do is IMDb who they usually work with and who their dolly grip usually is.
And give them a call if you know them or whatever. Yeah, we all do it because you want to know who you're working with. And then I don't know. I'll tell you what I do, and then I'll ask you if there's something similar that you do, because I think that there's no secret to going. Well, first of all, let me back up a little bit. And me as the camera operator and you as the dolly grip, we are 100% tied together in a team, and that team has to work well. And so the first day you're sort of going, is this a team member, that I'm going to work with, and what do they know and how good are they and what's their personality and all that stuff. So, I mean, what I'll do actually the first day is if we have a shot, hopefully a more complex shot, but even if it's a simple shot, number one is I'll go, okay, we need to come from here and go over. I'll just tell them the points and I'll say, what do you think? Mm-hmm. And part of it is like you said, because I want to let them know, I really want to know what they think. Yeah. But the other part is that I want to see what their thoughts are and if we're aligned and how we do things. And also there's a little part of me that always goes, if it's a crane shot specifically, I like to think that I know what I'm doing, mm-hmm. but and like, for instance, when it comes to Steadicam, mm-hmm. I could tell you all day long, I know what I'm doing better than you do because you don't do it. But you fly a crane all around all the time. So you probably know what that thing does better. You do know what that thing does better than I. So I'm sort of going, in my mind, I think this, but I'm going to ask you to see if you have a different idea, do you know? So do you test? And it's not a bad thing. I think we all do it.
I really don't. I really don't. I assume, look, I generally, for right or wrong, I assume if you're there and it's if it's a big, if it's a normal job, I assume if you're there, you know what you're doing. Yeah. Which isn't always the case, unfortunately, but I try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. And I assume that you're there for a reason because somebody thought your work was good and that they like you and blah, 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 blah. And, so I'm the same way. That's why I always consult my pickle operators. Look, they do it every day, and that's a lot of reason. Some dolly grips do the pickle and the arm at the same time. I'm not coordinated enough to do that, and I don't trust myself enough to do that.
That always amazes me when I see people who are good do that. I don't understand, but
and there are guys that can do it and nail it. And I don't. Oh yeah. I don't trust myself enough to do that, and they love doing it. I don't enjoy it. To me, it's separate my brain into two different, not really, because at the end of the day, you're just watching where the camera goes and you just kind of automatically make it happen.
Sure.
But yeah, I tend to consult experts. You know what I mean? Yeah. The pickle guy's an expert, and he or she has an opinion. I'm of course going to listen to that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Same with an operator. Look, if you know better what you're looking through the eyepiece. You know better what you need to see than I do. So I'm going to implement whatever you tell me. And if I have an idea, I'm going to bring it up. But if I'm wrong or you say, no, not really. Okay. What would you rather do? Let's do it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
What about when you're working? How much do you work with the first AC?
a lot. I try to always be, because I know, I work with, I tend to work with the same ACs. I'll work with Donnie Steinberg all the time, who's a fantastic focus puller. Funny and one of my favorite people to work with because we just laugh all day. But I always try, and also like Greg Irwin, I always try to make their job easier also, and so if something's happening, if I'm going to go a little further, stop short. If I happen to overshoot a take, I will go to them and say, you know what, I screwed you on that one. I overshot a little bit. Invariably, the first AC goes, it's fine. Greg Irwin always says, I'll walk in to tell him something. Greg, I'm going to go a little closer this time. He'll just look at me and go, I go where you go. And then
those are the best guys, and they know that they can. That's and do you often, after you're 3 takes, 4 takes in, do you let them know? I mean, once you've seen the actor do it 3-4 times, do you sort of go, okay, you know what? I just see that they're overshooting that mark every time, so I'm going to pull it back or whatever.
And it's generally an operator thing. Also, the operators and I are communicating, and the operator will say, you know what? Just go ahead and overshoot that mark. And I'll say, yeah, I was probably going to anyway because he's consistent. Yeah. Or she's consistently 2 feet over it. I'll just overshoot it. Yeah. And we, those kinds of conversations go on all day long. She's consistently, leaving earlier. So, whatever, so you're always, of course, once you get into that rhythm, they're going to change it. So that's
totally
the mark. You're going to have a mat box in their face, so
100%.
Yeah.
What do you think is the hardest part of your job?
What is the hardest part of my job? I always say the hardest part of my job is putting castle nuts on, but
what are castle nuts?
The castle nuts on the bottom.
Oh.
On the bottom.
Yeah, it's a huge nut that you can't get on unless it's perfectly flat and you can't see it.
Exactly. I would agree with that. Putting something, a riser or something on, everybody's sitting there looking at me. This is the hardest part of my job.
That's fair enough.
It's the hardest part of my job is overcoming myself because I am a huge. I have a lot of strangely insecurity about my job, which I think makes me work harder because I hate making mistakes. I did a movie with Steve Campanelli like 8 months ago and Don Burgess. I still think about a dance floor shot I did where I overshot too far to the left and missed an over of Nicole Kidman walking forward. I still think.
And I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that they didn't care, or you just redid it and it was no big deal.
The third take that I did it, Campanelli said, "You know what, Darryl, you're going a little too. You don't have to go that far left." And I go, "I know that."
Steve Campanelli, by the way, was the camera operator. He was a great camera operator.
Here's what happened is we did a wider take of it where I had to go, further left to balance the frame out, make it work. And then we did a tighter shot of it where I didn't have to go as far left to still hold a piece of the shoulder. And I had that previous take in my head and I kept doing it. And I still think about that shot. And it was.
What do you think? What do you think causes that? Because clearly you can have marks on the floor and this and that and the other. Is it just that your mind is in? Do you just get into sort of auto?
Exactly. Whatever? It's muscle memory, and we had done it and we only did like 3 takes and it worked fine. Part of that also is I've got Don Burgess back here. And I've got Steve,
the cinematographer.
And and I've got Steve Campanelli up there. They don't suffer fools. And I know that. And it's my first time. I knew Steve, but it's my first. And I work with Don's son, Mike, all the time. He's one of my favorite DPs. But in the back of my mind, somewhere in my mind, I'm thinking Don Burgess is watching this, and he knows. You know what I mean? There's if you don't give me, if you can't get it, you're gone. You know what I mean? In my head, that's what I'm thinking. Don's a very gracious man, and I like him. I had a ball working with him because he's one of the best. But in my head, I'm thinking it's Don Burgess, and I've got to get this, which unfortunately takes away from your focus. So I'm not focused on the shot. I'm focused on what everybody's thinking about the shot, which is wrong, completely wrong. So I gotta, I'm trying to put that out of my head, and I'm muscle memory, and it just things combined, or I just did it 3 times in a row and I did it wrong. And Don never said a word. Steve's like, Darryl, you don't have to do that. You keep going too far left. And I went, I know that. I don't know why I keep doing it. So the next take, I just stayed there and it worked.
Yeah. Yeah. I've done on Steadicam, there's stuff where as I'm landing a move and I'm going too far, and I don't even know why I'm going too far in my mind. I mean, and I'm in control of everything. So there's no one else to talk to about it. In my mind, in slow motion, it's sort of going, why are you going there? and it's happening, but I know exactly what you mean. So how long have you been a dolly grip? How many years?
I think I'm at about 28 or 30. I'm about 30.
Okay, so you're 30 years as a dolly grip, more in the industry.
Yeah.
You are, and I know you'll fight me on this, but you're considered one of the top dolly grips in the industry. And it sounds like when you work with good people who you haven't worked with before, there's still nervousness about I gotta do my job well.
Absolutely. I mean, it like I said, it's if I'm not careful, I get into my head. Who's watching it and what are they going to say about it? And I even worry that they're going to preempt something that I'm doing, which is down a rabbit hole. Is okay, I'm going to need to go left at this point, and I don't want them to have to tell me that. So I want them to let them know that I know to go left. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I got all this going on in my head at the time. So sometimes I just got to go, okay, shut up and just do this. Let what happens, and wait for, So sometimes I got to make myself turn the voices off in my head. And strangely, I have talked to other dolly grips about this, very good dolly grips, and they tell me the same thing, that their insecurity about the job and about how they're doing makes them work harder. I find that it's kind of cool because you use what could be a crippling force. You use it in your favor, which I wasn't even conscious I was doing, but other dolly grips have told me they do the same thing. I hate letting people down, and I hate making mistakes. I hate blowing takes, knowing that it's on me. So that makes me really try to ultra focus on things, and and push through and try to get it done.
That's great to hear, actually. And I mean, look, I'm the exact same way. There are times when I'm in the middle of a shot and I'll do something that I hate, and all I can think of is, oh my God, everybody back at the monitor just went, what is Dave's problem? What? And they probably didn't even, notice it. But I think it's great because younger operators, one of the problems that I find when I talk to younger operators is because they aren't secure yet, and it's such a tough job on top of it and everything. They look at people who have been in the industry forever, and they look at the finished product and they're like, oh, well, it's easy for them and everything's perfect and they never have any questions and they never have any problems. And the reality is we have all the same stuff that they do. It's just we have the years of experience behind us to go, this isn't going to end my career and whatever. But yeah, it's good to hear that. I mean, and it's an interesting take on it. I appreciate you sharing that. Now, you don't have to answer this, but you ever been fired off a show?
Not as a dolly grip. I have been fired. I got fired off a show in probably 1992 when I was a hammer, and I didn't deserve it because I wasn't very good. I had no idea.
Did it take a mental toll on you? Did you have to?
Absolutely destroyed me. And it was, I was working with a key grip that I really admired. And it was a movie in Mississippi, and I was staying in a trailer. I was sharing a trailer in a trailer park with another grip, and I got let go, and they brought a grip in from LA to let me and to replace me, and said I could be the extra guy. Well, meanwhile, I'm living in this trailer, and the guy I'm sharing a trailer with, who's a grip, is going to work every day, and I'm sitting there.
Oh, wow.
And it was, and as a 20, I think I was 22 years old or something. And with my mindset, I was like really down on myself, because I really wanted so bad to be a part of this business and to get good at it. And it was not a fun time. Weirdly, I finally decided to come back to Atlanta, immediately got a job on another show, and everything was fine, and they loved me. And it's a strange thing dealing with that. And it doesn't help. And this is neither here nor there, and we can cut this out. I've dealt with OCD for my entire life and take medication for it because I get thoughts in my head and insecurity things, anxiety in my head, and I can't get it out, which probably has something to do with my mindset at work. Not so much anymore, but back then it was crippling. And it was
wow.
So, and it kind of comes and goes. It's like somebody turn the volume up and turn the volume down on your.
Wow. Well, you clearly got past it because, I mean, your career shows it.
I fight it every day.
What's one of the craziest shots you've ever had to do?
Let me think.
Biggest, craziest, answer that however you want. Hardest.
Well, I one immediately comes to mind. There's a shot. I did a streaming Marvel show called Ms. Marvel with Dave Thomas was the operator. Dave Thompson was the operator. And we did a shot. It's close to the beginning of the first episode. And it's the DP and wanted to start way back wide, huge wide on a 50-foot Technocrane, and I think we're on a 45 Scorpio, and swoop it into this kid riding across the street on his bicycle, track along with him, push in. He parks his bike. We push in as he goes into the front of a store, then slide left, climb up the wall, and go into a window.
Oh my gosh, that's.
Yeah, when we got to the window, visual effect, we couldn't actually go in. We were out of arm at that point, but visual effects took over, and we went into the window in visual effects. But the only way we could do it was, again, what I spoke about earlier was I talked to Mike Howell, the pickle operator, and he said, look, and this was probably 100, close to, it was 90 feet of travel from the wide shot to the window. So he said, the only way we can get this, the only place we can put the base is right here. We're going to see the base at the wide point, but they're just going to have to paint it out because that's the only place we can put it, which we did. And so we did it and started swooping around. I think we did like 6 takes of it, and I had to adjust some of it a little bit. It's at the point where he parks his bike. I remember the DP saying, "Go a little further left because we want to see the neon in the window." And those are things that you deal with. I don't generally use monitors unless I have to on a crane or lasers. I just go by line of sight on the head. So it was a little tough because it was so far away. At that point, but did the shot. I think we did 5 or 6 takes, just timing things weren't working out with the bicycle and this and that and whatnot. But climbed up the wall, and about a year later, after the show came out, I remember I was on Facebook I can't remember what page it was, but somebody came on Facebook and said, I just saw a shot that I can't figure out how they did. I think it turned into a Steadicam step off at some point, this and that. And then and I thought it was Steadicam until they climbed the wall and went in the window. And I answered and I said, Mike Howell and I did that shot. It's completely all Technocrane. It's just a matter of putting the base in the right place and swinging it. And so that was really kind of gratifying that it was a really, it wasn't a technically hard shot. It was more figuring out how to do it than, which is the case a lot of times, just figuring out how to do it. The setup is generally, at this point, one of the hardest things to deal with. So that was really gratifying. They thought it was a Steadicam step off and this and that, and we surprised them by climbing the wall and going in the window. So that's one of the really most technically challenging shots.
That's very cool. That's very cool. What do you do? What do you do when you're working with difficult personalities on the set? Be it the operator, the first assistant, AD, anyone that you have to work in conjunction with. Not that that's ever actually happened.
No, never. It has happened very few times. I have rarely had crossed words with anyone, operator, AD, everybody. Look, you're together with these people for hours and hours, for months on end. Sooner or later, somebody's going to snap. It's a lot of pressure. You're going to have words sooner or later with somebody, which of course everybody does sooner or later. Generally, I try to bite my lip, bite my lip and say, okay. Now sometimes they'll sometimes they push you to a point where you kind of bark at them and say, you know what, just back off and let me do this, whatever. It happens very rarely. I tend to have a temper that's it takes a long time for me to really get to a point. And when it goes like it lasts like 5 seconds and I feel really bad about it. And I've had to apologize more than once and go, look, I apologize. I shouldn't have talked to you that way. It's been a long day and we're all tired and I'm sorry. I've had to do that more than once. And if I blow up at somebody, I always do that. But, cause there's really no excuse, we're all doing our best, but difficult people. I really haven't, there's been one or two, camera operators who, like I said before, don't trust me and think they have to tell me everything to do and have to explain the shot down to the most minutia of, okay, when if the foreground actor blocks the back, you got to move over and open them up, and I just look at them. Okay. And that is the hardest thing for me to deal with is somebody who thinks I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. And doesn't trust me. And that's when they start explaining the minutia of basically shot 101. Yeah. That really, and it's totally an ego thing, which I shouldn't have. But I
think everybody has that on a certain level, though.
But even that it's more just like, dude, I've been holding overs for 30 years. Yeah, I know.
I can see explaining the type of over that I like at the beginning of a show, so that you understand what I'm going for. But everything else, no, I totally get it. When we were talking about that, it made me think of something else. How do you handle it when? They've just come to me with a big crane shot and I come to you and I say, okay, this is what I want. And I want this, the base here and, wheels there. And we're going to go from here to here to here. And you come to me and say, I think, the base is probably problematic over here because X, Y, and Z. And I say, no, I need it there. I need it there. And you realize that we're going down a road that you are fairly certain is not going to work. But for whatever reason, you're not being listened to. What do you do in that case?
If you're an operator and you're adamant about it, and because look, you may know something I don't know. You probably do, as a matter of fact. There's something because operators who are my favorite people in the world, and I have dear friends who I love dearly, who I don't always tell me every single thing about the shot. There's sometimes there's something deep in the background that they want to see at the end, and they don't tell me. So I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about, and sometimes I get single-minded. I'm thinking, okay, I got to start here and get there. And that's a very oversimplified way of doing it. Yep. And there's more nuance to the shot than they're telling me. So look, if they're secure, if they're sure about it, I'm always going to say, absolutely, let's do it. Let's put it there. If it doesn't, if it doesn't work, we'll move it somewhere else. Nobody's 100% right all the time, So look, like I said, if they want to put the base somewhere they're at and they're sure that's what's going to work, I'll always put it there.
Yeah. To your point, though, operators are 100% right all the time. Oh, yeah. I just want to throw that out there. I feel like I have a responsibility. If I live 50% of the time, I'm doing my job better than I thought I could. Me too. Let me ask you about Big Fish and working with Philippe Rousselet. I mean, guy's an unbelievable cinematographer. I mean, are there times where you're doing things and you just can't even believe how good it looks?
Yes, because strangely, when I was in college, with a bunch of film geeks, our favorite. I remember we went and saw Dangerous Liaisons. And our favorite DP at the time was Philippe Rousselet. That was just the most amazing thing we'd ever seen. The soft light, orange light, and this and that. And we talked about him a lot. 10 years, 18 years later, I'm his dolly grip.
That's amazing.
It was to this day the best period of my career.
Is that overwhelming the first time that you worked with him when you're on set going, I can't believe this guy that I've idolized?
It was. And Philippe is such a sweet man and it's so fun to work with, and you just laugh and he's but he knows what he's doing, and he, of course. And but yeah, it was a little. I remember day one of Big Fish was a shot of the giant coming out of the cave.
Yes.
And of course, first shot's on a hi-hat or something. I can't remember. So I'm racing around and trying to make sure Philippe sees me and that I know how to level a hi-hat.
I love it.
I think I was 30 years old.
It's such a great image.
32 years old.
Did you do it?
I think I got it on the second or third try.
Yeah, there you go.
But Neil Norton was the operator, who I love dearly. I remember a lot of. I can't believe I'm working with this guy on a Tim Burton movie. Out of nowhere. And this was my second movie after Envy that I spoke was my first movie with this key grip in LA. The second movie I did was, okay, Philippe's got a show in Montgomery, Alabama.
Wow.
Now, yeah. So I went from, that was my second show with this key grip was with Philippe. And I did, I think, 5 more pictures with him and a bunch of commercials. But so it was cool. And like I said before, I've said once before, I said the SOC thing. It's one of the last jobs I remember. This is like old school filmmaking. There wasn't a lot of, there was CGI. Of course, we had a CGI fish at some point, but it was a lot of in-camera forced perspective to make the giant look bigger. And we had undersized cars built to make the giant look bigger in the parade, stuff like that. I think there's a shot where he's pushing the house back straight up.
Oh yeah, he's straightening up the house that's falling over. Yeah,
and I can't remember exactly. It seems to me, and it was a long time ago. It was 2003, 2002, I think. So it was a long time ago. But it seems to me, I remember we stood the giant up, and got the camera close to him with the house in the background, and had
wow.
Of course, they modified it in post and made it lined everything up better. But
that shot looks like he is fully pushing that house back up.
And I totally may be remembering it wrong, but that's the kind of stuff we would have done.
That's
the shot. Yeah, the shot of Ewan in the car underwater where the mermaid comes up, that was in the catering tent because it was raining and they couldn't figure out. They said, okay, we got to get this shot. Where can we pull the car into the catering tent, moved all the chairs and tables out, pulled the car into the catering tent, blacked it out inside and did the shot. And that's where I still remember we did that in the catering tent.
If it works, it works, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but that's to me the great part of this business is we have something impossible that we have to pull off. How do we do it? And 9 times out of 10, nobody says we just can't do it. And it's well, maybe this isn't perfect, but this will work or whatever.
Exactly. I mean, and I look at that as part of my job is I don't say no unless it's a safety issue and there's some reason that it's unsafe to do. I'll say absolutely. Let's give it a shot, and I can do that. I may not get it given space requirements and physics because I can't break the laws of physics. But generally, I may not be able to get you exactly what you want, but I'll get you really close. There may be a wall that I can't get far enough up against. Something of that nature.
Yeah. There was a director I worked with on a pilot who was sort of frustrating. But at one point he came up to me and he says, what you say a lot of times? And I, you know what? He goes, you say it's physics. Why do you say it's physics? And I said, oh, because you're constantly calling from the other room going, can't you get the camera back? And I'm like, no, there's a wall here. And you go, why not? And I say, because it's physics. Like that. I didn't even realize I was doing it. I think it was because I was frustrated with them, but whatever. Safety wise, because you brought it up, you're out there in the thick of it. How do you, what's your process for, if something is unsafe, how do you deal with that?
I go to first of all, and I've had to say this, part of my job as I look at it is they pay me sometimes to know when to say no. That's part of the reason I'm there is I know when something from my perspective is safe and when it's not. And of course I always, especially Technicranes are invariably one of the most dangerous pieces of equipment on a set.
Because it's a telescoping crane that can shoot out quickly. And
that thing will put you through a wall. And it doesn't stop unless somebody lets off the trigger. And if you run in front of it and the pickle operator somehow doesn't see you, whatever, you're in trouble. And I am constantly clearing people away from the crane. It's the weirdest thing. People love to stand in front of Technocranes, under them, around them, next to the bucket. It is the strangest. They're just drawn to it. So I'll tell the DP, he wants to do something that's sketchy or unsafe, which doesn't happen very often. DPs, they don't know sometimes. They just want to know if you can do it or not. And I'll tell them, I can't. We're coming too low. You got a background under the crane, whatever. I'll give you as much as I can. But until we work with the ADs or whatever, and as soon as I start coming down, have ADs clear them out and I'll drop to the ground, whatever, you have to work the shot out. And I always, especially Technocranes, I'll say, okay, we'll start slow. If it's a shot where people are in possible jeopardy, I'll say we're going to start at a slow speed. We'll try a quarter speed rehearsal, let everybody see where it's going. I constantly communicate with the first AD constantly. And also if it's involving stunt, I always go to the stunt coordinator. And I always tell the stunt coordinator, this is what they want to do. If you see me doing anything with this crane that you're unhappy with, that you're uncomfortable with, you come talk to me. It's very important to get these people involved because because they don't know. They don't know what you're dealing with on the back of that arm. I'm in constant communication with first ADs and stunt coordinators. If there's a background artist or somewhere who they tend to wander sometimes, or I'll go to the first AD and say, he can't be there or she can't be there. Operators on the other end going, why can't you drop? Why can't you drop? I'm like, there's somebody right under the arm.
It's physics.
Yeah, it's physics. And on the next take, between takes, the first AD, these people can't be here, this, and that, whatever. So yeah, I am constantly, and strangely, the older I get, when I was younger, I would swoop a crane arm around and miss things by 3 inches. The older I get, the bigger the margin gets. I love. We used to call it scraping the paint. I'd scrape the paint with a remote hit on a car and barely miss it, and loved it. And now, the older I get, the bigger that space gets between the.
I know. I look back on some of the things I did on West Wing, where we would go when we did West Wing. They had done the pilot, and I came in on the show. And one of the things I did was I asked the production designer I measured the camera that would be on the Steadicam. And I gave it 2 inches on either side. I don't know why I only gave it 2 inches on either side. And I said, make sure all of the doorways in these specific areas are going to be this big so that we can go sideways. And I would run sideways through these things. I never hit it once. I think I'd walk through it now and I'd slam into it. I have no idea.
It's almost a badge of honor because people see, wow, and unfortunately, and again, it's an ego thing. When you're young, I don't do it anymore. But when I was in my 30s, they're like, people are going, wow, and they'd come up to me and say, that was amazing. You got so close to that thing. And now I'm like, can I get a little bit further away?
Well, what I think it is. It's like when you're a kid, you'll ride your bike off a jump and not think about it because you've never broken your leg. But then you break your leg and you're like, I can't do that anymore.
Well, yeah, you think you're invincible, and of course now I don't see as well. I got to wear glasses. I don't trust myself. I had laser sharp vision when I was in my 30s, and I could see, from 50 feet away. I could see the gap, and now I can't see it as well anymore. Which, if you're listening to this, and don't be afraid, I can still do the job.
Darryl can still see. I just he needs another rehearsal first, but that's about it. What about how involved do you work with the actors much at all? Are you involved with the actors at all? Because you're 6 feet away, sometimes.
Yeah, I generally do, mainly in terms of safety. Things like if I'm chasing them down a hallway, I will either tell them myself, or if I don't know them well, I'll go to the first AD and say, it's imperative that the actor knows not to stop on a dime. I am racing right behind them. If they bust a take, if they decide they want to start over, go to the side. Don't just stop.
You give them an exit. Yeah, a safety exit.
Things like that. I will go to an actor and say, this, I just want you to know what we're doing. We're starting here on the Technocrane. We're pushing in. It's going to go right past you. And I did this on Bad Boys. We had several shots pushing past Martin Lawrence. And I would tell Martin and also the first AD, I am watching you like a hawk. I can see you. I will not hit you, I promise. And if anything goes wrong, we will stop this arm before, you're in any kind of danger. And Martin, to his credit, trusted, he was great. And Will's the same way. But on Bad Boys, there's a lot of shots of Technocranes getting very fast and close to actors. So it was a lot of discussion. It wasn't something where you just throw the crane up, start doing it. I want to make sure those actors know exactly what I'm doing and that I'm watching them. You know what I mean? Because they have enough to deal with. And so either I will communicate with them, or if I don't know them very well and they don't know who I will go to the first AD and say, make sure they know that I'm watching them and that we will stop before anything bad happens. Things like that. So.
And in a fast shot like that, where you're shooting past an actor or following an actor, do you in your mind have a bailout?
Yes.
And if something goes wrong, this is what I'm going to do.
Exactly. Yeah. I always try to have it in my head. If it looks like it's off, I'm gonna jerk it this way. Try to have that pre-planned in my head. And unfortunately, from the back of a Technocrane, it always looks like you're about to hit everything. Because you don't have any perspective of where the camera is and where an actor is. It looks like it always looks like you're right on top of them. So I'm constantly talking to the pickle operator saying, how far is our distance from this actor? And he'll say, oh, it's 2 feet. And I'll say, 2 feet? It looks like I'm 6 inches. So I'm always communicating, and I'll always go to make sure that the pickle operator understands, if you see anything that is you don't like, stop it. We'll start again.
Blow the shot. Exactly. Yep. That's amazing. Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, because I never thought about, I've never been in your position on the back of the bucket looking down that straight arm. And I didn't think about the fact that you would have absolutely really no concept, especially when it gets when it's close, maybe, but when it gets that far away from me. And one of the things that it brings up as an operator is, and I don't understand this, I show up on shows and the crane's going to be, a base of the crane's going to be over there. Let's put the wheels over here. And then the second that they put the wheels in there, the grips come and start building me in with solids. So I'm completely, and I go, I get them all at it, but you're not going to be able to see the monitor. I'll figure out how to see the monitor, but I got to be able to see the crane, because I want to be able to see how close we are and not only obviously safety, but also what the opportunities are that I may be missing. But, and I've said to people before, like, do most operators like this? And they're like, yeah, most operators want it totally dark. I just don't, I don't understand it.
Every operator I work with wants to see the head.
Yeah, I get it. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm the stuff I'm working on. I don't know, but it's weird because I was always like, maybe I'm the only one who wants this. So that's good to know.
And it's happened to all of them. Can you move this flag? So I have to be able to see what the crane's doing,
Yeah. And so immediately the grips know, like by the second shot that we're doing, it's just like, no, just put one behind me so it gets rid of reflection. I'll fix it.
What happens to everybody. You're not alone.
Yeah. There you go. Well, that's good to know. What's what would you say was one of your favorite movies to work on, or TV show?
Constantine, because every day was a blast. Francis Lawrence, the director, would purposefully come up with difficult shots for us to do, and he would come in the morning and say, "Okay, I got you." And the key grip and I would say, okay, let's figure this out. And he never got us. He came close. But and it was just a cool, I think it holds up. Philippe shot that, and I think it holds up well. I
don't think I've seen that. I'm going to have to watch that now, actually.
Yeah, Keanu Reeves movie. I don't think I think it holds up. There's been talk of a sequel for years and years. But I think it holds up well. And I think it was some of the most challenging. I like to be challenged, which is one reason I didn't, I don't like just doing, you park it and you do a push in, you do some movies and that's all it is, which goes with, if the story calls for that, whatever. But I like being challenged, and that was a challenging movie. And I think we were doing cool stuff, and Keanu's great. And what you were saying about dealing with actors, I would, if there were a lot of times where they would ask for a quicker push in or me to go a certain way that I hadn't gone before, I'd always go to Keanu and say, okay, they want me to go this way. I just want you to be aware, because he's walking around and I want him to know, I always try to make them aware of if something changes with what I'm doing, to make sure that they're aware of it, if it's important, You know what I mean? I don't want to get in their head and have them thinking about stuff they shouldn't. So, but if I know that it's something that might be important to them to know, either I'll tell them or I'll tell the first aid, just let them know that I'm going this way this time, whatever.
Yeah, no, that's all great stuff. I'll have to check it out. That sounds like a great movie. I remember it, but I don't think I saw it. I must have missed it. Yeah. Have you had a situation where you've worked with an operator who you didn't have a great relationship with because they just, weren't up to, the quality wasn't there? And I'm not asking, by the way, about that specific situation. What I'm more asking is, what can an operator do to work with you as a dolly grip that's not beneficial? You mentioned, over explaining and whatever, but what other things have you had in your career that operators have done that is not beneficial to the work environment with you?
No, that's a tough one, because I've honestly never. I've worked with years and years ago. I worked with operator, like maybe a younger operator or an operator who had done mostly like commercial work or something, who's now gotten a series. Who I would set I would set the dolly up a certain way for what would I consider a normal shot. Always be able to keep them on the eyepiece, keep them over the dolly, have the dolly a certain way so that they could always stay on it. And things like an operator couldn't do a rise without riding me on. That kind of thing, which sometimes you can't because of the dollar space limitations or whatever. And we've all seen operators just kind of rise up, and kind of stand up with the thing as they go. And I've worked with an operator probably 25 years ago who things like that. He didn't know the nuances of, things because he'd done mostly commercials. He was a great guy, but, so I was constantly, like I said, and my job is to make the operator's job easier. So I was that made my job harder, constantly trying to figure out, or I'd set up a certain way and he'd come in and say, well, no, I can't really do it this way, Other than that, like I say, I've never really had a situation where an operator and I really clashed in that way. Harkening back to stand-ups and sit-downs, the most common thing with operators is they don't trust dolly grips on stand-ups and sit-downs, which is not for some reason with dolly grips, that gets left out of the equation. A lot of times they practice dance floor moves and compound moves and sexy stuff, but stand-ups and sit-downs are things that it's one of the hardest shots to do if you're not practiced in it. So invariably, and this happened a couple times, operators don't trust me, and they'll start tilting up for a stand up or something, and they overshoot because I'm going up and this and that. And I've had operators say, why am I having such a hard time with this? And I'll say, trust me, I'll get you there. You may have to refine it at the end, but I'll be really close. And bam, once they trust me, we nail it. Unless it's just one of those times where I just screw the shot up, and then they don't ever trust me again. Yeah,
of course. Well, and for anybody who's never done it, stand-ups are the hardest things in the world to do because every single person is completely different. Yeah. Because it's about how much they bend on their torso and how fast they stand up and whatever. And you do, as an operator, have to trust that your dolly grip is going to match their speed. And by the way, I've had great dolly grips who have said to me, we're on a peewee, we're on a smaller dolly, and they'll just go, look, just so you know, this guy's rocketing. I cannot match his. It just doesn't go that fast. And, you had to be on the peewee for some reason. So basically what they're saying is you're going to have to start tilting him up and then feather it off back down. But, that's sort of what I expect from them because they're going, look, the machinery can't do better than this. So we either got to change everything or you got to ask him to slow down or we just got to get through this. But that's actually a great piece of advice, especially because for newer operators and seasoned operators, stand-ups and sit-downs, stand-ups for some reason more than sit-downs, I don't know why, are harder to do. And, it's also one of those things that if you're not doing a boom up for anybody who's trying to learn how to do this, if there's no boom up, you can pick a point on the wall or the ceiling or whatever it is. So you could just forget about the person and go there. But once you're booming up, if you're not in the exact same place, you just have to sort of feel it. And it's
watch the top of their head look next to the lens and try to just match the top of their head. It's just what I've developed for myself. It probably doesn't.
Yeah, I've told this story before, but one of my first days on ER, Eric LaSalle, great actor, good guy, friend, and he came up to me either before the shot or after the shot, and he said quietly, "You're never going to forget the first day that you had to stand Eric LaSalle up from a seat," because he just does this lean down, and even if he tries to slow it down, somehow it doesn't, and his torso is really big, so it just goes. Now, but the great thing was Steve Robertson, who was my dolly grip, who was fantastic, was on it, and he said, "Look, I'll get you there." And I had to correct a little at the end, and it probably wasn't great on my part, but Steve knew him well enough to know not to get fooled by the first part of the move, and then to go up quickly. Whatever. I don't know how he did.
And look, the good, especially older actors who've been around forever, they help you. They know not to back it up and not to do a weird lean and then shoot up. And they help Denzel Washington and a lot of older actors. They know what you're dealing with, and they will, a buddy of mine did Antoine Fisher with Denzel Washington. I also did a movie with Denzel, and he was great. And he said, Denzel told him, he said, before I stand up, I'll give you a look. And he said,
fantastic,
so helpful. He would just kind of stare, just kind of look at me. Of course, he's looking off camera, so he's not looking at the lens. And he said it helped him every time.
That's amazing. That's all you want from an actor. Or the other thing that'll happen is you do take one and totally bone them, and on the way back they'll come and smack you on the knee and go, "I killed you on that one. I apologize. I'm not going to do that again." Because they're caught up in the moment or something, and they're not thinking about it. But because I would look, I would not want to be an actor for the entire world. But the thing that I would want even more so is to be an actor and have to do some scene and think about how I'm going to sit up in the middle.
Exactly. We try to be as invisible as possible to them.
Yeah. No
quite there. But there's like you said, I'll always tell the operator, look, I got it wide open. It doesn't go any faster. So either we, it's easier to back up a little. If we're right on top of them, it just makes it even harder. So we got to figure something out, or you can fix it on the tilt. But
well, like you said, and that's what I would expect from a good dolly grip is to go, look, this is what I can't do, but here's 4 ways I can do it. Which one works for you, or what do we got to do? We got to fix it somehow. Well, this is all gold, and I so appreciate you talking to me today about all this. It's great to talk to you. I hope that we get to work together someday.
I know.
We'd have a blast.
You're not gonna want to get rid of Mark Catania anytime soon.
Mark Catania did work with me, and boy, some amazing work. And that show, by the way, as you probably know, there was a lot of zero tilt. So, we used to joke that the really good dolly shots were the shots where I wasn't on the dolly and I had my hands in my pockets and Mark was doing everything.
He is so good at what he does.
He is so good.
I have nothing but admiration for him. And Ozark, the camera movement on Ozark has always been consistently good every season because
that's why.
Yeah. And so it's, and you can tell. Joe Blow in Minnesota probably doesn't know, but as a dolly grip, you can tell, they may use a take that's not as good as the next one, just for performance. But you can tell when somebody's that knows what they're doing is on the back of that thing. Probably people watch movies I do and say, this jackass has no idea what he's doing, but
I doubt it. There was a day out at the trailers where we had we were setting up a really complicated, it's out on some lake there. I forget the name of the lake in Atlanta, but one of the 9 million lakes out there. And we were setting up some very, very complicated techno crane shot, and Mark was on the bucket, and I don't remember who was on the pickle, but someone was on the pickles, whoever came with the crane. Right. And it was one of those things, which you probably know from Atlanta, where they go, all right, just to let everybody know, there are clouds coming in 15 minutes with rain, and it's going to rain for 7 hours. Yes. And it was like, oh my God. So I literally brought him over and I said, okay, so here's the deal. We're going to have to wing this a little bit and we'll talk through it, but this is basically what I need. And Mark, these actors haven't quite got it yet, and we're just going to have to adjust on the fly. And he just went, great, let's go. Yeah. And basically it was, he did some work on that was so unbelievable. And it's one of those things that as a camera operator, it's the best thing in the world, because you're watching the shot and you're operating and you're like, wow, I am really good. And then you catch yourself and you're like, and I have nothing to do with this. Like every time they move, he's adjusting, and the guy in the pickle is just there, and it's the best.
And
But that's how you know you're with someone.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you got to do that, even though you're kind of not sure in your own head if you can do it. You just kind of go, okay, screw it, let's go.
Let's go. Yeah. And that's sometimes when the best stuff comes out. And in all honesty, if we had rehearsed that 12 times, it might not have been as good, because then it also has an energy that just you can't quantify.
You reach the point of diminishing returns usually around the 5th or 6th take, if you go that far, where it's gone and it's peaked and it's just everything's getting worse as you go. Every take is just worse now.
No question about it. Well, listen, Darryl, thank you so much for everything. It's great talking to you. I sort of started on this pathway, got taken off, but I'm going to leave you with a question that I leave everybody with. Mm-hmm. Working with a new working with a new camera operator, which is, as I said before, a lot of this podcast is really about, hearing stories and learning stuff and sharing stuff, but really it's for newer people moving up, newer people becoming operators, becoming A camera operators. What kind of advice do you have for someone to be successful, be it personality, be it technical, be it, whatever it is? What would you say to them if they were saying, how do I make it in this business?
I would say, realize that it's not about you, for one thing. It's not about looking good in front of everybody else, and it's not about being the star and drawing attention to yourself. It's like I said, I have to make myself get into that mindset. I'm here to make your job easier. It's easy for me when I'm laying a big dance floor, especially, working with new people. And I've had this discussion with other Dolly grips too. It's easy to get into that mindset. Look what I can do. I can lay this huge dance floor in like 8 minutes and have a Dolly on it ready to get. It's not about that, and it's easy, especially in this business, because you want big time DPs and big time directors. You want them to notice you, you know what I mean? And know that you're good at what you do. And you have to, you got to do away with all that and realize that Scott Sakamoto gave me, here's a story if I have time. Scott Sakamoto, we were doing Black Panther, and we had a shot where, it's a Ronin descends on a descender rig. I unhook it and pull an actor back through a casino, up a set of stairs into a bar, and go into a profile of her at the bar. And Scott's, operating on the wheels, and I pulled back, detached, go pull her back through the casino, and there's like 3 steps into the bar. I go up the steps, and Scott had told me earlier, if it makes it easier, put a ramp in. We won't see it. And it'll make your life easier. Me, being me, said, I don't need that ramp. I can do this. Come on. I got time to screw around with a ramp. And did it. Like 4 takes in, Scott's like, those stairs just you're still bumpy coming up the stairs. And he said, did you put a ramp in? I said, well, no. And he said, come here. So I go over to Scotty, who I love dearly. I'll go over to Scotty, and he said, look, all these people care about is what's inside that box. They don't know. You got to make yourself look good. They don't know how you're doing the shot. They don't care. They probably don't even know that you're doing the shot. You got to all they care about is what it looks like inside that box. And if it doesn't look right, sooner or later, they're going to come out and want to know why. Right now, they don't care. Put the ramp in. I put the ramp in, bam, nailed the next take, and it was fine. And that was 20, almost 30 years in. That was a very important lesson for me to learn. And I had never thought about it before. And I always try to remember that. It's all about what's inside that box, and they don't even know who's doing what most of the time. So that's my
I hope you enjoyed that as much advice. As I did. We'll be back soon with another great episode. Don't forget to check us out on theop.io for all sorts of information on operating and storytelling. So thanks for listening, and have a great day.